But maybe he had a point, because if we had paid more attention to her, we would have seen that she was being groomed and there was a child lover living under our roof.
Yeah!
My wife asked if he had manipulated or threatened her into keeping the relationship a secret, but she said the decision was mutual. She was worried that we would stop paying for her apartment and tuition if we had known.
Get out.
Which was true. We would have. My wife then asked if she felt bad or guilty about lying to us for 3 years straight. We always had weekly dinners and they sat across from us, pretending like they weren't dating. Our daughter even went as far as making up boys she had been dating while at college so that we wouldn't suspect anything.
Saying I'm off
She didn't feel guilty about lying, but her fiancé had told her it would be worth it in the long run. It was not. I told her that because I had raised him, he was her brother, and she kept denying it. She said they weren't related by blood.
You're not slick. I knew you were going over.
Yeah, but I still killed you, buddy.
There's a reason he's dating someone 15 years younger than him instead of dating someone his own age.
I phased right through you.
She got mad at us and tried to kick us out. But I stayed put and told her she wasn't in a healthy relationship. I was scared for her well-being, and she could do so much better than her adopted brother. I suggested family therapy for us, but she said she doesn't need it. I told her that if she can't see that she was groomed, then she needs it more than all of us. But she wasn't budging. To her, he had loved her like nobody else, and I told her that's because he had been preying on her since she was little and made her fall in love with him. I needed her to understand that she needs to leave this relationship, but in order for my wife and I to be able to help, she needs to want the help. This was probably too much for her to process. So I let her know she was always welcome into our home. Before leaving, she said she would like her fiancé and I to speak, but I do not think that is a wise idea right now. She said she had heard him leaving my daughter's room in the morning. My son also told me that he had run into my 15-year-old daughter out with a bastard when she was supposed to be in school. I can't believe we never saw the sign.
You already watched this.
He had been grooming her for years. I feel sick knowing we willingly took a man and this is how he chooses to repay us by manipulating our underage daughter. My parents booted me out at 18 and left me homeless.
Get out.
10 years later, and they lost everything to 2020 bankruptcy. So they broke into my home to squat while I was away. I'm a 30-year-old male, and my parents didn't really want kids.
Interesting.
I was an only child, and pretty much an accidental pregnancy from what relatives have told me, as my parents claimed that they were going to be child-free when they married. My childhood was initially good.
In the same area that you died as well last round.
They both worked, and had their own business that they started together. That business was their life, and I was always second fiddle to it. Any other close members of family, like my grandparents, lived states away, and I barely knew anything about them till I was an adult. So I had no other family around my entire childhood. I was practically raised by TV and my school teachers. My own birthdays, by the time I became a teenager, were often spent without my parents, as they just give me some money and tell me to go out and buy whatever I wanted. It was more or less the same with Christmas and sometimes even back-to-school shopping. We wouldn't have even had a Christmas tree after I turned 10 if it weren't for the fact I convinced my parents to buy a fake one I could build up and then take apart later every year. If I were to describe my parents, think of them as those people who always wear black, drink lots of wine, and look down their noses at people. And the last I saw of my parents, they still looked the same way. Although my father was always wearing a toupee now, when I turned 16, I asked my parents if I could work part-time for them at their business, and they just told me they had no open positions or anything like that. They may as well have just come right out and said
right?
Yeah.
After I turned 18, my parents told me that since I was an adult, they expected me to move out as soon as I was able.
Good spectator.
I was working part-time because I was still in high school, and I didn't have anywhere near enough saved for college. And not long after high school ended, my parents told me to pack up and move out. They got an official eviction notice that gave me 30 days and everything. They didn't even help me move. I had to get help from a friend's dad who owns a truck. I ended up renting a working retail.
How did I already know that you were there?
Then after just a few months, I got fired because my manager legitimately had it out for me and wrote me up for the stupidest thing. I don't even remember what they were anymore, but I wasn't the only one the manager treated that.
Excuse me?
A few other people. Corporate looked into the manager, and they were soon fired for various reasons. Not many of which I actually know, since it was mostly kept quiet. But someone told me theft of cigarettes was a part of it, and the manager was a chain smoker.
Are you following me?
Corporate refused to rehire me and only said that they'd changed the record to say I was laid off instead of terminated, so my resume would still be clean. Guess they considered me damaged goods or something. I ended up going broke pretty fast because I was terrible at managing my own money and couldn't find steady employment. So I lost my apartment. I went back to my parents begging for help, but they refused to take me in, not even for a little while to get back on my feet. I ended up homeless and living out of a tent in someone's backyard. In winter, my friends had all moved on to college, some in other states, and I was a broke kid taking whatever work I could to stay alive. My salvation came when one of the neighbors of my parents found out I was living out of a tent and offered to take me in for a little while so I wouldn't freeze. She helped me badger my parents into telling me how to get in touch with the other members of my estranged family. My parents did not want to say. My guess is out of fear of being judged for throwing their son out the way they did, but they coughed up the info and gave me a list of contact details, and then told me not to bother them ever again. I called my grandparents on my father's side of the family, and they were very surprised and happy to hear from me because they hadn't seen me since I was an infant, and I'm their only grandchild. My grandparents, after finding out my situation, flew me over to live with them as soon as they could. They basically adopted me. My parents didn't even see me off at the airport despite being invited to. I had zero contact with them for pretty much a decade. My grandparents said they despised my parents for treating me so poorly, and legally disowned them by striking me. My parents, I'm told, were not happy to hear that, but also said it didn't really matter because they were plenty well off and didn't need anything from my
Police is trying to
grandparents.
murder.
How wrong that statement turned out to be. After about a year of living with my grandparents, I was able to afford to start going to community college. I got an associate's degree, got a decent job, thanks to a recommendation from my grandpa.
Thank you.
Eventually, my grandparents offered to sell me their
Imagine
house
that
so they could
express.
retire to Arizona. My grandma wanted to live in a warmer climate as the cold winter was getting harder and harder on her health every year. I was sad to see them go, but I happily bought the house. They sold it to me for 1/3 its value, and I'll have it paid off in a few more years. My job is me going out on the road periodically, so I can end up away from home for weeks at a time.
You're a cheater.
Not that I mind the travel. I have no pets or a girlfriend, or anything like that. I wouldn't have time for them right now. But in a few years, when I have some things in order, I'll make it. I don't want to stay a lonely bachelor forever. Then one day in late 2020, I came home after being away for over 2 weeks, only to find a large white van I did not recognize in my driveway. My parents booted me out at 18 and left me homeless. 10 years later, I was getting ready to call police when I noticed the van had the logo for my parents' business on the side of it, and I felt dread. Yes, my parents were there. They'd broken in somehow and were living out of my home, and they had the nerve to greet me like we were buddy/buddy the moment I walked in. I told them to get the hell out, and they refused because it was Grandma and Grandpa's house.
Ooh.
I said it wasn't their house anymore. They'd sold it to me when they retired. They'd have known that if they were in any way involved with my life, but they threw me to the wolves 10 years prior with no life experience. We argued and they refused to leave.
Cheater.
My father told me it was his parents' house first,
Call the
and it meant he and my
popo.
mother had the right to live there if they wanted. I walked right into my bedroom, locked the door, and called the police. When the cops showed up, they were of no help. My parents claimed to them that they had already been there long enough to have residency, which was a complete lie, but I had no cameras to prove they weren't there a month. My neighbors had no cameras either. So it was my word against my parents over how long they'd really been there, and they were claiming squatters' rights. They told police they had a verbal rental agreement with me, and that I was trying to illegally evict them for no reason. My mother even put on the waterworks when saying that. The police told me it was a family dispute, and to file eviction with the courts to get them out, and this was in 2020. Getting to court for anything took longer because of the pandemic. Meanwhile, my parents are squatting in my house rent-free and rubbing it in my face. From the information I got out of them, their business went bankrupt and they sold off almost everything they had to pay their debts. All they had left was the
You think you're slick, huh? You think you're slick, huh? You think you're slick,
Actually, it
huh?
was because I was on
They
low
were working
health.
too.
That's the only
Both of
reason
them
he killed
soon
me.
got
So
new jobs.
stop talking.
My father as a delivery driver, my mother as a sales associate. They were making money, and the only things they contributed to was electricity and water utilities, which was basically just handing me a $100 bill every month and saying I should be grateful they were paying me anything. Anytime I tried to discuss proper rent with them, they just said I owed it to them to live rent-free because I took 18 years of their lives, and it's not like they were demanding the money back for that.
Then you should have
They
put me
threatened
up
to stop
for
helping with the
adoption,
utilities altogether.
stupid.
I was so at my wit's end that I ended up calling my grandparents to explain the situation to them. They were very unhappy, and spoke with my parents, but my parents still said they had the right to stay in my home, and refused to budge. My grandpa told me he was sorry it had come to this, and that if they hadn't sold me the house, my parents wouldn't have invaded. I told him not to worry, I'd already filed for a legal eviction, and would get it soon enough, and my parents already knew that they were on borrowed time. I made sure to say that in earshot of my parents too. They responded with the silent treatment. My father was away most of the time driving a delivery vehicle 6 days a week, which was a job really not to his liking. And my mother basically tried to take over my house in her spare time. She demanded I let her rearrange my living room, and even tried to force me to give her and my father the master bedroom, because they were my parents, and they deserved better, as she put it. I vetoed both of those things and said they don't deserve better, and to stop trying to act like
Oh, I got you real low, though.
to be born, and it's a
He
normal
did it.
obligation
I'm not
for parents to
74.
raise their own children.
Exactly,
And all they
real
were doing was
low.
trying to assert dominance to try and keep me from kicking them out. Finally, after 4 months and now into early 2021, I managed to take my parents to court over their squatting. We only needed to go to court because they fought the eviction and tried to gaslight me into rescinding it. They tried to use the fact it was formerly my grandparents' house, and the fact that they were giving me $100 a month as some sort of leverage of residency. But there was no
$100 is not that
and they were smart
much.
enough not to try and forge one, as that would have been fraud. So the judge ordered that they needed to be out in a maximum of 30 days because they have zero claim on my house. After court, they confronted me and said they were disappointed in me for kicking out my own flesh and blood. I couldn't help but laugh and call them hypocrites because that's exactly what they did to me without a care in the world for my well-being. They had no love for me, so I have no love for them. I owe them nothing. They just tried to act like everything that was mine is theirs, but they had no right to call themselves my parents because they never really acted like it. I called
The
them
revolver
a
again.
narcissist to their faces and told them to get their affairs in order because they already know
Damn.
I won't hesitate to call police if they don't leave my house when the 30 days are over. My father looked enraged, but my mother stopped him from saying or doing anything by grabbing a shoulder and shaking her head. He sneered at me and walked away. They left, but not without a lot of tension. That final month was spent with them either guilting me to try and make me change my mind, or completely ignoring me.
Stupid.
I put up a calendar in the living room and checked off each day before they had to leave
You.
with a red marker, and the exact day they were to be out was marked with a big red circle. I still remember that final day was March 2nd. My parents waited until the exact day they had to leave my home for good before they finally left, even when all their stuff was out of the house and they were sleeping on the floor in the guest room for a few days. Since they were so convinced they could make me let them stay, they didn't bother to try and look for an apartment until after the court eviction went through, and my mother spent weeks scrambling to find an apartment. They had to get a tiny and crappy studio apartment in the next city over because it was the only thing they could find on such short notice.
99, I got down on you.
Quite ironic. I was getting ready to call police when I noticed the van had the logo for my parents' business on the side of it, and I felt dread.
That's unfair.
Yes.
My
Turn this off.
stepdad said he's tired of my mom's mama class. Wants to try mine now. Part 1. He basically raised me since I could remember it, and now he wants to try my bomba class. My mom had me at 18.
I shotgun.
My dad died a year later.
You shotgun no one, but I shotgun you.
My mom remarried at 21 and had my sisters. My stepdad, Scott, was the only father I've known, and he's been amazing. Even though he says he has 23 children and 22 baby mothers, now that's a real bad man. But anyways, things changed when I turned 23 though. I remember Scott was becoming a little more touchy than normal, and a little too personal. He started to buy me Nike Pro shorts anytime he could, and told me I was only allowed to walk around the house with them on. He told me I was beautiful all the time and said I had a crazy bomba clad, and if he was my age, he would have gone after me right away. He would offer me...
What the hell is this?
He's talking about the butt.
Huh?
He said to his stepdaughter that she has a level 10 gap.
Fine, and would ask me about boys I was seeing in my life after one too many classes. I brushed it off because I thought maybe he was being a nosy Jamaican father and just wanted to make sure
Jamaican
his daughter wasn't
crazy.
Then, this kind of stuff continued. To the point where my stepdad tried to riz me up by telling me...
Raise me up! What are these stories, bro?
Part 1. He basically raised me since I could remember it, and now he wants to try my bomba. My Jamaican stepdad said he's tired of my mom's bomba claw and wants to try mine now. Part 2.
You want to try your yacht?
After that, I knew that I had to make plans to leave, so I started. Incident. Things died down a bit until my mom got pregnant at 39. It's a serious pregnancy, so she's on a lot of bed
Level
rest.
10 yacht, bro. It's crazy.
A couple of weeks ago, my mom and Scott sat me down and told me her doctor said she should avoid any bedroom activities during her pregnancy due to various health reasons I won't get into. However, I knew this was partly a lie, since I heard Scott tell my mom he was tired of her bomba clap. They asked
Bomba clap.
me if my mother was
You
tired.
blew yourself up.
Of course, I said no. I was livid. I was crying. She told me she'd be okay with it, and she'd
What
be
is
in
the
the room
bomba
as well.
clap?
I told her that was even worse.
Yeah.
What are they thinking? My Jamaican father just said, "Womp womp, take one for the team."
You don't got one,
This
buddy.
was the last strike. I now have enough money for an apartment. I got approved and I'm signing my lease next week. My parents are ignoring me.
I'm the
and whole
sheriff
house
here.
is full of
I call the shots.
My younger sisters
You know, call the shots.
Say anything. But my sisters are
Because
smart.
since I
They
got a
know
rocket
something's up.
launcher.
And they stopped asking me about it, especially the
Excuse
oldest.
me? It didn't even explode. What are you talking about?
Exploded like a few meters behind you.
I don't feel safe anymore in my house. I don't want anyone to touch my bomba claw except my brother.
Obama, what?
Dad said he's tired of
She said, oh, she only wants her brother to touch it.
Part 2. I told my mom he was black and told her that he was never too good at using it. After that, I knew that I had to make plans to leave. So I
Watching
started
right now, bro.
After that incident,
We've been watching the same guy for like an hour.
it's a high-risk
It's
pregnancy,
TikTok?
so she's a
Yes.
nosy mother.
Never
what's his
YouTube
name?
shorts. YouTube shorts never does this, bro.
My Jamaican stepdad said
What's
he's
his name?
tired
I
of
want to
my
report
mom's
him.
bomba.
No, he's funny.
I told my mom and
Kid
she
him.
just laughed
I want to
and
tell him
told
his
me
videos
that's
are
how
good.
he gets, that he was never too good at using Riz. After that,
At using Riz, he was never too good at using Riz. It's crazy.
things died down a bit until
My
I was
God.
pregnant at 39.
You wanna know his name? His name is Spooky Scares, but these stories aren't even scary.
A couple of weeks ago, my mom and Scott sat me down and told me her doctor said she should avoid any bedroom activities during her pregnancy.
Get out.
Reasons I won't get into.
Leave. Just
However, I knew this was partly a lie, since I heard
Boomba
Scott was
clap.
tired of her bomba clap.
you
They
belong
asked me
here.
if I could take over.
Boomba clap. Boomba
You
clap.
belong in the zoo. Boomba clap. I don't want my brother to touch it. That's weird.
She told me she'd be okay with it, and she'd be in the room as well. I told her that
What?
was even worse.
Oh, they were talking about the sexy time.
My nosy mother-in-law
Hey,
snooped through my confidential work files.
yeah,
and
when she
jeopardized
wants
my
her
career,
brother
so
to
I
touch
sent
his
her home without
booty,
paying
bomba
for
clap.
it. Never told my husband. Part 1. So my mother-in-law is from a small town in the American South, and she has all those gossipy small-town tendencies. It has never been a problem for us before because we live in major city clear across the country from
Well, I
her.
didn't even reload.
Aside from her fully taking over dinner conversations, doing visits to catch us up on the stimulus comings, and going to the congregation,
How
we
much is
didn't
your
really
health?
have to deal with
80.
Get over here.
Nah.
My
I'm gonna
father
touch
blamed
your
my
I
booba
sister
don't
for my
clout.
mother's
consent.
death, and now she calls
I'm
me
gonna
daddy.
touch your booba clout.
I'm a 24-year-old male and the older brother to my
I'm right here, buddy.
For privacy's sake, I'll refer to her as Belle.
Get out.
My parents had me as teenagers. They were 15 and 16 at the time.
Boomba clap.
My father
I
blamed my
need you to
sister
sit
for my
down.
mother's death, and now that she calls me daddy, he regrets everything.
Daddy.
Hey,
My 5-year-old sister. For privacy's sake, I'll refer to her as Belle.
you
For some
missed.
background, my parents had me as teenagers. They were 15 and 16 at the time.
15 and
I always
16.
feel that they regretted having me.
Bend over.
After I was born, both my mother
Give me
and
them
father were
cheeks.
practically disowned by their families. My mother had to drop out of high school to take care of me, while my father worked 2 jobs just to provide, and even then they couldn't afford a home. They lived with
Bomba
my mother's
clout.
older sister until I was 9, and my father got his GED and managed to get a better job and move us out. Despite the fact our living
Wow.
situation was bad, it was clear to me that they believed their lives were ruined because of me. Whenever I misbehaved like any normal child, they'd use the fact that they gave up their lives for me, and I still had the audacity to behave like this. And even when I never misbehaved, they never treated me with much love. I barely got to get new clothing.
Get out.
They took my clothes from Goodwill and practically refused to get me anything nice unless they had 2 birthdays,
Before I beat
parties,
your boomba
meeting
clout with
friends,
this
and
belt.
their wedding. My birthdays were always celebrated with the bare minimum. They'd give me a cupcake and a single gift. Nothing that I wanted. Despite everything, I was still a child who just wanted their love. But as I grew older, I began to accept I wouldn't get it and made peace with that. I guess somewhere along the line, when my parents realized I gave up on them throughout
Get
my
out.
teenage days, mainly my mother, began to treat me better.
You need to
So at
ask
that
before
point,
you
I
walk in
wasn't
my
the child
room.
to beg for their love anymore. I never
I could be
received the love
changing
of my
right now,
parents,
you
and I
little
wasn't
weirdo.
asking for it anymore.
Mm.
Although I can't say I kept hating
Pervert.
them. In fact, my feeling began to feel neutral towards them. In my eyes, we were practically
A tiger
strangers.
needs to
I never got know them
change,
truly as
okay?
they raised me with the bare minimum and never had
Even
any
though I
real
wear the same
conversation.
clothes over
We
and
had
over
never
again.
spent any quality
Yep.
time with me. They also knew nothing about me, so them suddenly trying to play parents with me was awkward to say the least. When I was 18, my mother got pregnant, and I guess it was when they gave up on
You just
trying
tried
to
to
fix
clap me.
things with me as they could have a new child to start over with. They didn't treat me poorly again, but instead it
No, you
felt
did
like
not
we were
just shoot.
strangers living in the same home. When I turned 19, my mother gave birth to a girl, but due to some complications, she didn't end up surviving. This crushed my father. Not only did he begin to resent me for not being as sad as he was over her death, she was
Got you.
barely a mother to me, so there wasn't much to be sad over.
One
But
shot
he
is
also blamed
crazy.
his daughter for unaliving his wife. He was never home after the incident, and I was left taking care of my sister. I ended up having to take a break from college after the time.
Oh, the mother died.
Sister screaming with hunger in an unchanged
Bet you
diaper
touched
while
your
my
boomba
father
clout.
was on
Just so you know, the mom died and now the brother's taking care of the
But he always got
sister.
angry and ended the convo with him saying I could always leave Belle at the fire station. I eventually
Ha!
gave up on forcing him to be a father. Despite everything, I truly
That was
loved
not
Belle.
30 kills.
She was the sweetest and cutest kid. She was almost always smiling and surprisingly nice. Once she was old enough, I enrolled her in daycare and continued my education while working night shifts. I always made sure to leave a good portion of afternoons empty so I could spend time with her. She always knew who her actual father was, and as she grew older, she began to try and spend time with him, I guess, as she began to follow him around the house. Of course, that quickly ended after he blew up on her and she began to fear him. I realized she saw me as a parental figure despite the fact she knew I was her brother. When she was old enough for preschool, I found out she was telling people I was her father. I never mentioned it to her and just let it be until she gave her Father's Day card she made in preschool to me. I then told her if
What
she
the
wanted, she could call me
hell?
Dad, and since then she's been calling me Daddy.
Oh
Ended
no!
up getting a girlfriend and began to change himself.
Well, just so you know, she's in preschool.
And she's calling him daddy.
Yeah, she's too young to. She's too young to say dad or dada.
That's not even her dad.
Well, it's a parental figure.
And he then began to take over on
Yeah, but that's not her
bills
dad.
other than the portion
She does not care.
He never really tried being a
Why did I
father.
spawn here?
He did begin to eat breakfast with us, but that breakfast was spent in silence other than me and Belle talking. Fast forward to a few months
The
ago.
child's name is Belle.
Planned a party for her and invited her.
Was it
My
Cinderella?
father ended up attending as I guess his girlfriend
Where?
thought it would be a good
You
time to
Beauty
meet
and
his
the
daughter
Beast?
as she was the one who looked excited to be here. Anyways, while she was opening gifts, I surprised her with one of those kids' electric cars. She screamed,
Wow, kid electric car!
Daddy. After the party and after Belle was fast asleep, my father asked me what the hell happened. I was confused till he yelled asking why his daughter was calling me Daddy.
It's because you're not a dad, Daddy.
He's a cartoon.
Yeah. Oh no, bro.
He was quiet and went to bed. Since then he's tried to play father and talk to her, but he was a stranger to her. She was a sweet girl, so she entertained my father's conversation, but he could tell how awkward she felt, and it was clear it hurt him. Despite how selfish it is, I don't want their relationship to get better. After all, just as she saw me as her dad, I saw her as my daughter. I graduated college and I'm looking for a better job so I can move Belle and I into our own home. I may be a bad person for enjoying my father's misery and regret realizing he ruined his chances in having a relationship with his daughter, but I'll never be as bad as him. My father blamed my sister for my mother's death, and now that she calls me, my wife told me someone else is her soulmate. My wife, Emily, met her
soulmate, huh?
Chuck in high school. They became close friends, and Chuck came out to Emily as gay. Emily was supportive. A year or so later, Chuck came out to his parents. They disowned him and kicked him out, and Chuck ended up living with Emily and her parents for the rest of high school. Emily and I started dating after college, and she told me all about Chuck and how close they were and how he was like a brother. I met Chuck, and we got along and became friends.
You're at 1 HP!
At the time, Chuck was dating a guy, and they ended up moving in together about the same time that Emily
I was
and I
actually
got
at
engaged.
20.
Emily and I have been
How? I got you to 99.
project manager and took
No.
on a year-long project in
Yes.
another city. I have to leave
No.
at 5:30 a.m. every morning and get home around
I was at
6:30
20,
p.m.
dummy.
Emily and I had a long talk about my job before I took on this project. We knew it would be
Trying
a
to touch
sacrifice for me to be working so much, but I'm
There you
happier
go.
than I ever thought I would. After this project, we can pay off our student debt and start trying to have a baby. We both agreed
I
the
don't
money
like
was
this
worth
one.
it since it's helping me get through
You don't like getting a game that you're not good
Chuck
at.
caught his boyfriend cheating. He was devastated.
I see
Emily
you in that
immediately
window.
told him he could move in with us. I was fine with him moving in, but not happy that Emily didn't even discuss it with me first. Chuck was pretty broken up, and
Are you
Emily was
shooting
giving
at?
him lots of love and attention.
I thought you were in
I
the
was
other
fine with it
window.
because I know how much she
I
loves
am.
Chuck, and he did need her.
No, you're not. You're right here.
To support him and make him feel
I
loved.
just ran over here.
Don't think that you're
But as
slick.
time went on, Emily has continued
I just
to pour
ran
all
over
her
there.
attention into Chuck. Sometimes I get home from work,
off.
and neither of them is there, and I found out they went to a movie or out to dinner together. I don't think there is anything romantic or intimate between them, but it has been annoying that I get
Well,
left out.
Chuck is gay.
The past few weeks,
Emily is
the
straight.
three of us went to a party, and someone joked about Chuck.
That's this main character's girlfriend's name, Emily.
I said, "What?" And she said, "I've known Chuck longer than I've known you." A week or so after that, Emily and Chuck went out dancing one night.
I'm gonna kill you.
I had to
Now
work
I'm
the next
murdering
day,
you. Now you're
so I
done.
stayed
Now
home.
you're
Are you
lucky.
mad that the main character's girlfriend is named Emily?
Chuck cuddled up on the couch asleep with the
Yes.
TV on. Those things made me laugh.
Are you?
What?
I also realized
Why?
that so much I was just sort of letting Emily and Chuck plan everything, and I had not planned a date night in a while. I decided.
Why, Jane? Why are you mad?
So I planned a date night for last
Wait, who
Friday.
said I was mad?
When I first told Emily,
You said that you're mad at the main character's girlfriend being named Emily.
Friday, I got home at 6:30, and Emily.
You
and
just
Chuck were
said
out.
yes, you
I
are.
took a shower and got ready.
I'm mad at the
About
actual Emily.
7:15, I finally called Emily, as we had reservations at 8. She answered, and when
That's
I asked
Emily.
where she was, she said she and Chuck had gone shopping and were getting some dinner. I was kind of stunned and asked about our date.
Chuck wants a dessert, bro.
Oh, I forgot. Oh well. And that was that. She didn't
kind
even
of
invite
dessert
me
you
to
talking
join
about?
them. So, a
You
point
know.
I should make here.
Ring,
My dad was
ring.
very controlling of my mom and had an anger problem where he would yell and throw things. He never threw things at us, but it was still scary as a kid. I have worked very hard to not be like him. I've tried to never be controlling of Emily or tell her what to do. I also tend to shut down when I get
Bro,
angry.
I don't like this
When Emily
anymore.
forgot our date, I was mad, so I didn't say anything right then. But I knew I needed to.
You want me to let you kill? Do you want me to let you kill
I had
me?
written down some things
Yes.
so I could stay focused. I started
Okay.
by saying that I
You're
loved
gonna have to
her,
catch
and
me
was always
first.
welcome in our home, but that I felt like our marriage was suffering and we needed to work on it. Emily blew up. She thought I was attacking Chuck. I guess I didn't word things well, and she started defending him and attacking me. We had never had a big fight before. We always talk and work things out. I was stunned that she was attacking me. She said some awful things. Then she said, "Chuck is my soulmate, and you just have to get used to that." I just shut down. I didn't even know how to process that. I love Emily more.
Chuck is gay, bro.
Moment, I realized she loves Chuck more than she loves me.
Got you.
I thought Emily and I were soulmates, but to hear her say she considers someone else her soulmate has been devastating. I don't remember the rest of the talk. She huffed off after a while and slept on the couch. She and Chuck left together on Saturday and were gone most of the day. When they got back, she acted like nothing had happened. On Sunday, she even made a small joke and batted her eyes at me, something she does when she's flirting with me. Normally I love it, but this time it just made me sick. I told her this was a busy week at work, and I was just going to stay at a hotel near the job site, something I've done a few times before, so I haven't seen her since Sunday night. I don't know what to do. Typing all of this up has made me realize I am really burned out with all of this travel. Maybe I checked out too much and haven't given her enough attention. But how do I move forward knowing she will never love me as much as I love her? My wife told me someone else is her soulmate. My wife, Emily, met her best friend Chuck in high school. They became close friends, and Chuck came out.
Does she not remember that Chuck's gay?
A year or so later, Chuck came out. My racist teacher keeps forcefully.
My racist teacher, Jane. Listen to this.
My racist teacher keeps forcefully searching my backpack ever since I converted to Islam, so I'm making him quit. I am currently in my sophomore year of high
167,
school, and
let's
I have
go.
this teacher named Mr. D, who I have never got along with as I feel like he has always had it out
Mr.
for
D.
me. I don't know whether
These
it's because of
nuts.
background or ethnicity,
I
or
was
simply
just about
because
to
I'm
say
brown,
that.
but it does for sure seem that way. Mr. D has on numerous occasions made offhanded remarks to me. I thought you can't eat pork if you whatever against it. Wait, it's fasting season. Is it offensive if I eat in front of you? He
You
said
thought
while
I was
laughing. I
AFK?
remember another distinct remark of his that rubbed
No.
me the wrong way.
You thought I wouldn't be
No,
able
I could never. Instead, I choose Remendon, where I only eat ramen noodles.
No.
Bear in mind, he would say all these things despite knowing I am not Muslim. The only reason he knew this is because when he made the poor comment mentioned above, I explained to him that although I'm brown, I don't follow the religion strictly and don't consider myself a devout Muslim.
Just son.
He seemed shocked at this, and actually had the audacity to ask me, aren't you guys a little extreme about your faith? What do your parents think? I did not answer his question and
You hear that?
I do not feel comfortable discussing this matter.
I'm
with him.
standing right here,
No
dummy.
surprise, I did not do well in his class, despite being quite good at math. I reported him after he asked me if I wanted my future wife to wear a hijab, because although I'm not religious, he was interested in knowing if I still held some outdated views. Sadly, nothing
Stupid.
and I did not discuss the matter with anyone at all outside of school. Ever since the report of mine,
Who do you think you're talking
has been
to?
extremely nasty,
Ew.
and his shift in behavior coincidentally came right around the time that I converted to Islam. The reason I converted is because my
Get out.
baby sister was severely ill, and her chances of pulling
Next
through
time,
were
don't talk to me.
very slim. During that time, I resorted to faith for comfort. Seeing my sister pull through was a miracle, and although I am just as thankful to the doctors and specialists who took care of her, the whole experience has converted me into a believer of some form of higher power. I now consider myself truly Muslim. When I converted, I kept it on the low, of course, not intentionally, but I had no need to bolster the fact I changed my faith. Well, Mr. D caught wind of the fact I converted through a conversation I had with a friend inside his class.
Ooh, I
How did
took
you hit me?
I took a lot of damage from you.
40 damage.
Now that I've
40
converted,
damage.
the school will go boom. Mr. D was not a fan of that joke at all, and after hearing it, he pulled me out of class to talk to me outside immediately.
Now I'm
His
back at
first
100.
words when
Now what's
outside the
up?
classroom were, I've heard you converted faith. Why? When I told him I did not feel comfortable answering that, he told me if I didn't answer, he was going to have no choice but to report me for making the joke I just made. So I was forced to explain my change in faith to Mr. D. For some reason, that's all he wanted to know. He told me to go back into the classroom and did not question me further. I was baffled as to why he cared about my faith so much. Either way, I didn't think much of it. It's not like he's going to start examining me every day to make sure I don't go off and hide all the school, right? Wrong. Mr. D started checking my bag on random days a few weeks later. First, he would be subtle about it. He would stand at my desk and ask me if I had a copy of a certain book in my bag, and regardless of what my answer was, he would ask me to check right now. I did not notice it at the time, but he was definitely looming in to see what was in my bag. However, after finding nothing over and over, Mr. D became more forceful with his approach. I remember him keeping me after school one day to talk about my behavior issues. He stated he had reason to suspect I was a threat and I need to hand my bag over to him.
You're a threat.
When I refused, he told me he would tell the principal about the joke I made.
Yeah, he's
I made
Islam.
this joke over a full
He's
month.
about to make 9/11 happen all over again.
However, that joke held power. As a Muslim, making a joke in school like that does not bode well for me, and I was willing to do anything not to be reported for it, so I let him search my bag. I let him do this over, and over, and over again. Mr. D spent around 2 months periodically checking my bag, maybe once or twice a week to try to find something.
Well, there has to be one racist friend in the group.
This racist
I'm dead.
I still didn't tell anyone about it.
Literally or theoretically.
Without anyone's help,
I'll
I made a
accept
plan.
myself.
The plan was heinous, to say the least. I
Wait,
found
did he
Mr.
say
D's Facebook
heinous
and
or
took numerous
nameless?
screenshots and pictures of his head.
Or did
It's
he
worth
say
noting that Mr. D is a
penis?
large man, and this part came in handy. I used the pictures of his head I screenshotted and combined them with photos I took. Photos of shirtless men with his exact skin tone and body frame. After carefully photoshopping 3 of these images together, I was set to go.
Finally.
It's worth noting that I
Revenge
created
is
Photoshop,
mine.
but it's been a hobby of mine
And
since I
revenge
was
is
in middle
sweet.
school, so I did a good job of
I'm
it.
dead.
I did
I'm
all
dead.
the
Bro, you said revenge is sweet, but then you said, I'm dead, I'm dead.
pictures on a very niche website, which is into that kind of thing. I then wrote the link of the URL of the images onto a few pieces of paper, all while wearing gloves, and placed them in peculiar areas around school.
You know it wasn't going to last that long.
Underneath stalls.
Hi, buddy. I see you in that window.
I waited for students to stumble onto them and do my work for me. It took a few weeks for anyone to notice, but notice they did. The next thing Mr. D knew was deepfakes of him without being shared across the entire school, and he was scrambling around looking for a perpetrator.
What, you amazed on how accurate I
In
shot?
school for the last few days.
It
He
wasn't
doesn't even
accurate. You
suspect
hit
me.
behind me.
I'm thinking he just quit instead of dealing with the hassle of it all.
Bruh.
But I'm not sure. Maybe when I update next, I'll be in custody. Who knows?
I found my husband's Reddit account, and I wish I hadn't. Last night, my husband, 26 male, gave me 25 female his phone to put my order in since we were getting Chinese food. We trust each other completely, know each other's passwords, and we both have free access to the other's phone. I never really checked his phone before, so
You know what? Hold on. Pause. Don't do anything, Jaden. I'm gonna look for
Don't this in the window, chill out.
yeah, because I need to find a horror story. Got it?
I swear to God, I won't kill you. I'm sitting right here. Look. You can't kill me when you come back.
Got it.
Let me hide first.
Horror Reddit story.
But I like these stories.
I work as a sleep scientist. After my last discovery,
Okay, we're good.
I refused to sleep for 3 weeks straight. I usually enjoy working in the sleep
You better
lab,
start running.
but after what I discovered last night, I don't
Kane, you better start running.
I like this one. I like the other
Since
guy.
working as a sleep scientist, I've seen...
Well, that guy doesn't do horror stories.
I've had to hear the blood-curdling screams of kids with sleep paralysis, claiming to see demons.
Bro, you saw me just stand right there.
Every type of terrifying sleep-related issue, but nothing could have prepared me for my last patient. He was a man in his mid-20s who had lapsed into a coma a few days
What? It's phasing through you, bro.
so we could monitor him, since a coma is very...
You said you wanted horror stories. Do you want funny stories?
Originally
I
hesitant
said
to
I
take
like
on
these
this patient
stories.
for
That's what I
observation.
said.
The reason is, this patient presents with a whole list of strange and
Good
unusual
claps,
symptoms,
kid.
yet we have no idea what could have caused it. The patient's brother reports that the patient had randomly begun suffering from extreme hallucinations and headaches.
Can we go back to the other stories? I like them better.
Goes by, and he
Okay.
wakes up.
Hold on.
Especially with that big booty thingy.
Funny Reddit stories. Let's see how this goes.
No, I like the other ones.
No. This was funny.
My girlfriend's booty cheeks smell absolutely...
Hold on. Listen.
My girlfriend's booty cheeks smell absolutely terrible. I can't take it anymore.
I told you.
When I noticed the pre-shot air literally stunk like poo. I ain't even joking. That smell was so awful it factory reset me, and I could swear my body took a screenshot. I was immediately turned off. I found myself thinking the next day I didn't want to sleep with this person anymore. I find it of hygiene to be inconsiderate and even a little disrespectful to partners, especially when it's noticeable during intimacy, like kissing or intercourse. I tried to be mature and have the conversation in person, but even then I knew she would take it pretty bad. She spirals down into very negative thoughts about herself, and I didn't want her to think there was anything wrong with her as a person, so I tried to bring her down slowly. When the morning rolled around, she made a joke about me going to work and basically ended it with "You'll provide for us, baby," which I just had to shut down. I was already trying to figure out what I was going to say, but that made me realize that she has far deeper feelings and intentions for me than she initially displayed. I told her that while I think she's a great person, I don't think we should continue seeing each other or hooking up anymore. She immediately spiraled, and I went into repair mode. I tried to minimize the damage by blaming myself. In short, I basically gave her the "it's not you, it's me" cliche, and it kind of worked.
Wow.
On me a couple of days later in my Instagram messages. I wasn't straightforward about her smell at first because I was just trying to save us both some embarrassment. Knowing her, she would have begged me to change my mind by promising she could wash her booty better. It was then she
Wash your booty better.
people so that I could have a pedestal to put myself on. She said that she was the best option for me and that I was stupid for not wanting to be with her. She accused me of chasing dysfunction because it's the only way for me to appear good or functional by comparison. That actually pissed me the hell off, but I still bit my